All around us, often unnoticed, plants form the living foundation of life on Earth. They breathe silently, grow patiently, and shape the world in ways that are both vast and intimate. From the towering redwoods that pierce the forest canopy to the tiniest moss clinging to a rock, plants occupy almost every environment on the planet. They capture sunlight and turn it into food through photosynthesis, releasing the oxygen we breathe and fueling the entire web of life. They build soils, anchor ecosystems, and regulate the planet's climate. Without them, life as we know it would simply not exist. But plants are far more than passive providers of food and oxygen. They are dynamic, adaptive, and surprisingly complex organisms. They sense their surroundings and respond to light, gravity, touch, and even the presence of other living things. They communicate through chemical signals, form alliances with fungi and bacteria, and wage subtle battles with herbivores and competitors. Some clone themselves or grow from seeds thousands of years old. Others survive freezing solid, resist scorching sunlight with natural sunscreen, or even parasitize other plants to steal their nutrients. The story of plant life is a story of resilience and ingenuity, written across hundreds of millions of years of evolution. It is the story of how life learned to harness sunlight, how green beings transformed a barren earth into a thriving planet, and how they continue to sustain and shape every ecosystem today. To explore the world of plants is to explore the foundation of life itself, a world of silent yet powerful forces that make Earth habitable and beautiful. Beneath the surface of the world we see, where roots weave through soil like the veins of an unseen creature, plants live in quiet conversation. They have no mouths, no ears, no words, but they speak all the same. Their language is one of chemicals and signals, of slow pulses and secret exchanges carried on invisible currents. For centuries, humans overlooked this subtle murmur of life, imagining plants as silent, passive beings. Yet the truth is far richer. Plants are listeners, messengers, and sometimes even warners. They send distress calls when danger comes. They share nutrients with their kin. They whisper warnings through underground networks, and in their own slow rhythm, they tell stories of survival. It begins with the air. When a leaf is bitten by a hungry insect, the plant doesn't simply suffer quietly. Almost immediately, it releases a burst of volatile organic compounds, tiny, airborne chemicals that drift toward nearby plants. To us, these compounds might carry a faint scent of grass or resin, but to neighboring plants, they are the equivalent of a shouted alarm. Beware, they say, the enemy is here. Within minutes, the surrounding plants begin to change. They strengthen their defenses, producing bitter or toxic compounds to deter the same attackers. Some even thicken their leaves, making them tougher to chew. What seems like coincidence to the casual observer is actually a kind of coordination, a community protecting itself through a cloud of invisible words. The roots, too, are fluent in this botanical language. Beneath the soil, where darkness reigns and life moves slowly, roots exchange messages through a network of fungi known as mycorrhizae. These fungal threads connect plant to plant, tree to tree, forming what scientists now call the wood wide web. Through it, a tree can share sugars with a shaded sapling struggling to grow. A mother tree can nourish her offspring long after they have sprouted. When one plant is attacked by disease or insects, the signal can pass through this network, alerting others to prepare their defenses. In some forests, this web links nearly every tree, creating an ecosystem that functions less like a collection of individuals and more like a single breathing organism. Even competition takes place through communication. Some plants release chemicals into the soil to suppress the growth of their rivals. The black walnut, for instance, exudes juglone, a compound that poisons the roots of other plants encroaching too closely. In this way, it carves out its territory, staking its claim not with violence but with chemistry. Other species, like acacias in the African savanna, coordinate their defenses against grazing animals. When a giraffe starts nibbling on the leaves of one tree, the acacia quickly fills its foliage with tannins, making them bitter and hard to digest. At the same time, it releases ethylene gas that drifts on the wind. Trees downwind sense this and follow suit, toughening their leaves before the giraffe can reach them. What looks like a solitary battle between plant and herbivore is, in truth, a cooperative defense. The conversation is not limited to defense or rivalry. Plants also speak of growth, of fertility, of seasons turning. When spring comes, the lengthening days and changing temperatures trigger hormonal signals that tell buds to open and roots to stretch. Within the plant, hormones act as internal messengers, guiding growth, healing wounds, or redirecting energy. Auxins, cytokinins, gibberellins, all are parts of this silent vocabulary. Through these chemical cues, a plant coordinates its body, ensuring that roots grow downward toward water, stems reach upward toward light, and flowers bloom when pollinators are near. Even the scent of a flower is a message, carefully crafted to attract the right partner. The sweet fragrance of jasmine calls to moths at dusk. The rich smell of a corpse flower lures flies with promises of decay. Every aroma is a phrase in the language of survival. Humans once thought of communication as a privilege of consciousness, but plants have shown that awareness can take many forms. Their intelligence is not centered in a brain but distributed throughout their tissues. They sense gravity, moisture, vibration, and light. They can distinguish between their own roots and those of others. Some researchers have found that plants can even recognize relatives, altering their growth patterns to avoid competing with kin. It is not communication as we understand it. There is no thought, no intention, but there is responsiveness, adaptation, and connection. Life, in all its forms, seeks to relate. If one walks through an old forest with this understanding, the experience changes. Each rustle of leaves becomes a whisper. The scent of pine resin becomes a message carried on the breeze. The soil itself seems alive with murmurs. The tall trees above are not silent sentinels but participants in an ongoing dialogue that has lasted for millennia. They exchange carbon and nitrogen, share warnings about pests, and adjust their behavior in subtle synchrony. Even in a garden, where human hands have arranged and separated, this conversation continues. A tomato plant, when brushed by a hand or breeze, strengthens its stem in response. A bean plant, when it senses the presence of a nearby support, begins to grow toward it, as though reaching out. The language of plants reminds us that communication is not confined to words or sound. It is an exchange of influence, a responsiveness to presence. The forest, the meadow, the desert, they are filled with this invisible conversation, woven from scent, touch, and chemistry. To listen requires patience and a different kind of attention. It is to recognize that intelligence does not always move at the speed of thought, and that meaning can be carried on a molecule as easily as on a breath. In this slow, green symphony, plants speak not only to each other but to the world. They regulate the air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil we walk upon. Their communication sustains ecosystems, balances climates, and ultimately sustains us. The world's quietest voices may also be its most essential ones. If we learn to listen, not with ears but with understanding, we might find that the earth has been speaking all along, and that the language of life is far broader than we ever imagined. We do not usually think of plants as creatures capable of memory. They have no brains, no neurons, no central nervous system, none of the structures we associate with storing and recalling information. Yet, in their own quiet, intricate ways, plants can indeed remember. Their memory is not like ours, filled with images and stories, but it is real nonetheless. A living record written into their cells, guiding their responses to the world and shaping their survival. This subtle form of memory allows them to anticipate change, adapt to challenges, and even learn from experience, all without a single thought passing through their stems or leaves. One of the most striking examples of plant memory can be seen in how they respond to stress. When a plant endures a drought, it does more than simply struggle through the dry spell. It adjusts its internal chemistry and physiology in ways that help it cope, closing its stomata to reduce water loss, producing protective proteins, and shifting its metabolism. But the story doesn't end when the rain returns. Remarkably, many plants remember the drought. If dry conditions strike again, they respond more swiftly and efficiently, as if recalling their past ordeal. This phenomenon, known as stress memory, is a kind of cellular preparedness. Epigenetic changes, chemical marks on DNA or histones that alter gene activity without changing the genetic code, act like bookmarks, reminding the plant which defenses to deploy faster the next time. This memory can last far beyond a single season. Some plants pass it down to their offspring, priming them for challenges they have not yet faced. If a parent plant survives a period of cold or heat, its seeds may inherit a heightened resilience, their genes poised to respond more effectively when similar stresses arise. It is a kind of biological storytelling, a way for plants to hand down lessons learned from experience, not through teaching, but through molecular imprints etched into their lineage. Plants also remember the rhythm of the seasons, a skill that is vital for their survival. Many species require a period of winter cold before they will flower in the spring, a process known as vernalization. This ensures that they do not bloom during a warm spell in midwinter, only to be destroyed by frost. During the cold months, specific genes involved in flowering are silenced, and the plant records that winter has occurred. When the temperature rises and days lengthen, that memory is lifted, the genes activate and flowering begins. Without this seasonal memory, plants could not synchronize their life cycles with the environment around them. Even individual leaves and stems exhibit a form of short-term memory. A classic example is the Venus flytrap, the carnivorous plant that snaps shut when prey brushes against its trigger hairs. The trap does not close after a single touch. It waits for a second signal within about 20 seconds. This brief window shows that the plant remembers the first touch and uses that memory to decide whether to act. If no second stimulus comes, the trap stays open, conserving energy. Similar memory-like behavior appears in Mimosa pudica, the sensitive plant whose leaves fold when touched. Scientists have shown that if the plant is repeatedly jostled without harm, it learns that the stimulus is not dangerous and stops closing its leaves. And astonishingly, this learned behavior can persist for weeks. The mechanisms behind these forms of memory are as varied as they are ingenious. Electrical signals travel through plant tissues in response to stimuli, not unlike impulses in animal nervous systems. Hormones act as chemical messengers, and calcium waves ripple through cells to encode information about past events. Epigenetic marks, meanwhile, serve as long-term notes written into the genome. Together, these systems create a living archive of experience, enabling plants to adjust their behavior based on what they have learned. For a long time, scientists resisted using the word memory for plants. It seemed too anthropomorphic, too suggestive of consciousness. Yet as research has advanced, it has become clear that plants possess sophisticated ways of storing and using information. They may not remember as we do, but they do remember, and this capacity is essential to their survival in a world that is constantly changing. Their memories are not stored in brains, but in molecules, patterns, and responses honed by millions of years of evolution. This hidden intelligence challenges the way we see plants. They are often dismissed as passive, rooted beings, existing merely as background to the animal world. But a closer look reveals that they are anything but passive. They monitor their environment with exquisite sensitivity, respond dynamically to changes, and adjust their strategies based on past experience. Their memory is not conscious thought, but it is a profound and effective tool, allowing them to thrive in complex and unpredictable ecosystems. Even the forests and fields around us are shaped by this quiet memory. Every spring bloom, every drought-hardened tree, every seedling that germinates at just the right moment is part of a vast tapestry of remembered experience. The world's green life carries within it a record of storms weathered, winters endured, and dangers overcome. A collective memory written not in stories, but in genes, proteins, and chemical whispers. To recognize that plants remember is to deepen our understanding of life itself. Memory, we learn, is not confined to brains or minds. It is a fundamental property of living systems, emerging wherever organisms must adapt to the past to survive the future. In the stillness of a forest, in the unfolding of a leaf, there is memory at work, silent, invisible, and ancient. Plants remember not in thoughts but in resilience, not in recollection but in readiness. And through that memory they endure. In the quiet world of trees, where centuries pass like the slow pulse of a heartbeat, a kind of language moves invisibly through the air. It is not spoken, and it cannot be heard by human ears, yet it fills the forest like a low hum of meaning. Trees, for all their stillness, are not mute. They speak in sense. Their messages drift through wind and sunlight, made of invisible molecules that carry warning, comfort, and connection. Each fragrance that escapes from bark or leaf is a word in a vocabulary far older than speech, a signal that other trees understand without sound. It begins with an act of harm. When an insect bites into a leaf, piercing its green flesh, the tree responds almost immediately. It releases volatile organic compounds, tiny airborne chemicals that swirl into the air like an alarm. These compounds, though invisible, travel swiftly on the breeze. Nearby trees detect them through their leaves, as though catching a scent of danger. Within minutes, they begin to change. Some increase the production of tannins or bitter alkaloids, substances that make their leaves less appealing to hungry mouths. Others start to synthesize enzymes that can neutralize toxins or repair damage. What looks like a single tree being attacked is, in truth, a network of trees sharing warnings, preparing themselves for a threat they cannot see but can smell. This kind of chemical communication is most famously seen among acacia trees in the African savannas. When a giraffe begins to nibble on an acacia's leaves, the tree responds by flooding its foliage with tannins, making them unpalatable. At the same time, it releases ethylene gas, a sharp, volatile compound that drifts through the air to neighboring trees. Those downwind acacias, catching the signal, begin to arm themselves as well. Within moments, a whole stretch of savanna can taste bitter to the browsing animals. The trees, in essence, have cried out a warning, and their neighbors have heard. The giraffe, puzzled by the sudden change, moves on, often walking upwind to find unalerted trees. What appears to be instinctive animal behavior is, in fact, a dance between scent and survival. This invisible language of scent extends beyond warnings. Trees also use their aromatic messages to attract allies. When certain trees are attacked by caterpillars, for instance, they do not merely defend themselves, they call for help. The wounded leaves release specific scents that attract parasitic wasps, insects that lay their eggs inside the caterpillars, killing them in the process. The scent is a kind of plea, an airborne message saying, "Come quickly, and I will feed you." These chemical cries for aid reveal a complex awareness of ecological relationships. The tree knows, in a sense, that it cannot move or fight, but it can influence the world around it through smell. Even the fragrances that seem purely pleasant to us, the resinous aroma of pine, the sweetness of orange blossom, the sharpness of eucalyptus, are not produced merely for beauty. They are messages, sometimes of attraction, sometimes of deterrence. The essential oils and terpenes that give trees their distinct scents have evolved for communication. They can repel harmful insects, attract pollinators, or signal readiness for reproduction. When one tree flowers and releases its perfume, others of the same kind nearby may sense the change and follow suit, synchronizing their blooming so that pollinators visit them all in turn. The entire forest, unseen and unheard, hums with these fragrant exchanges. Beneath the poetic surface, this communication is deeply practical. Volatile organic compounds are light, reactive molecules, able to move easily through air and to be detected by the sensitive receptors on leaves, or even the bark of neighboring trees. Some scientists have compared this system to a primitive form of broadcasting, with each tree sending signals into the open air, where others interpret and respond. The forest, then, is not a collection of solitary beings but a community linked by a continuous flow of scent. Every change in temperature, every gust of wind, carries information. The human nose catches only hints of this hidden dialogue. We smell the sweetness of spring blooms or the sharpness of pine needles after rain, but to trees these scents mean far more. The crisp smell after a storm, the green freshness in the air, is partly caused by ozone and partly by plant compounds released when leaves are damaged. To us it is a pleasant aroma. To the plants it is a signal that something has happened, that the world around them has shifted. Each scent carries context, a story written in chemistry. The idea that trees communicate through scent reshapes how we imagine them. They are not passive decorations in a landscape but participants in an ancient and intricate system of exchange. When a grove of poplars trembles in the wind, each leaf shimmering like a signal flag, there is more happening than motion. The air between them is alive with invisible messages of defense, cooperation, and balance. The forest breathes not just oxygen but information. To stand among trees with this knowledge is to feel the air differently. The scent of pine is no longer only pleasant. It is a pulse of language. The faint sweetness of a blooming lime tree is both a call and a response. The acrid odor that rises from broken leaves is a cry of distress. The forest is full of talk, but its words are made of molecules too fine for our eyes, too subtle for our ears. In their own way, trees have always spoken, though at a tempo slower and quieter than ours. Their communication depends on patience, the time it takes for a breeze to carry a signal, for another tree to sense it and respond. It is a conversation stretched across minutes, hours, even days, yet its effect is profound. Through scent, trees create community. They warn and protect, attract, and cooperate. What we perceive as stillness is, in truth, a ceaseless exchange of messages, drifting through sunlight and shadow. The forest, when you think of it this way, is not silent at all. It is a chorus of breath, each tree exhaling a wordless story into the wind. In the green silence of tropical forests and misty mountain valleys, bamboo rises with astonishing speed. Day by day, it stretches upward, slender and hollow, reaching toward the light with a vigor few plants can match. Among all the living forms of vegetation, bamboo holds one of nature's most extraordinary records. It is one of the fastest-growing plants on Earth. Some species have been observed to grow nearly a meter in a single day, their shoots pushing through the soil like living arrows. To watch bamboo grow is to witness time accelerated, life unfolding in motion too swift for belief. It is as though the plant contains within it the very rhythm of the Earth's heartbeat, pulsing upward, unstoppable. Bamboo's swiftness is more than a marvel. It is a strategy of survival. Unlike trees, which add rings of wood slowly over decades, bamboo belongs to the grass family. Its stems, known as culms, grow from underground rhizomes that spread horizontally through the soil. These rhizomes store vast reserves of nutrients and energy, allowing new shoots to emerge already equipped for rapid ascent. When conditions are right, moist soil, warm air, abundant light, the shoots expand through a process called cell elongation. Rather than producing new cells, bamboo simply stretches the ones it already has, inflating them like tiny balloons. This mechanism allows the plant to achieve extraordinary growth rates without the time-consuming work of dividing cells. Within a few short weeks, a bamboo shoot can tower above a person, its green surface smooth and shining, its hollow chambers already strong enough to withstand wind and rain. The speed of bamboo's growth seems almost supernatural, but it follows the same biological principles that guide all life, only faster, more efficient, more daring. Deep within its tissues, water pressure builds in the cells, pushing upward with tremendous force. The plant harnesses this pressure like a natural hydraulic system, channeling energy into vertical expansion. Every hour brings change. Farmers in Asia have long said that if you listen closely in the quiet of night, you can hear bamboo growing, a faint creaking as the culms stretch and the nodes pop open one by one. It is not a legend without truth. The sound of growth, though subtle, is real. Bamboo grows not just quickly but audibly, its progress etched in sound. Its rapid life cycle has made bamboo a symbol of renewal and resilience in many cultures. In China, it represents strength and flexibility, the ability to bend without breaking. In Japan, it stands for purity and perseverance. Its hollow stem is seen as a metaphor for humility and openness, while its quick regeneration reflects the rhythm of life's endless rebirth. In places where it grows wild, entire landscapes can transform in a single season. A hillside that was bare after harvest may soon shimmer with a new forest of bamboo, rising thick and tall, swaying in unison with the wind. It is a living reminder that destruction and renewal are part of the same cycle. Bamboo's speed has made it invaluable to humans for thousands of years. Because it grows so fast, it can be harvested sustainably, providing a constant supply of material without exhausting the land. In Asia, it has been used for homes, bridges, paper, tools, and even musical instruments. Its shoots feed people and animals alike, while its leaves enrich the soil as they fall. The plant's rapid regeneration means that within a few years of cutting, a grove can return to its full height. It is a kind of green miracle, strong as wood, yet more forgiving and endlessly renewable. In an age of environmental urgency, bamboo has become a symbol of sustainable living, a plant that teaches abundance without waste. But its growth, while magnificent, is not without discipline. Bamboo follows a rhythm that alternates between rest and expansion. After a period of rapid vertical growth, the culms stop elongating and begin to harden, forming joints that give the plant its strength. Inside, the fibers become dense and woody, allowing the stalk to stand firm for decades. Meanwhile, underground, the rhizomes continue to spread, preparing the next generation of shoots. The cycle repeats year after year with mathematical precision. This balance between speed and stability, between movement and structure, is what makes bamboo so remarkable. It grows faster than almost any other plant, yet it never grows carelessly. The phenomenon reaches its peak in the tropical bamboo forests of Southeast Asia, where conditions allow the plants to achieve their full potential. Here, the culms can reach 30 meters high, forming green cathedrals that whisper in the wind. Within a week, the ground transforms from bare soil to a dense thicket, sunlight filtered through a canopy of emerald. The sight is breathtaking. A forest that seems to rise overnight, built by the tireless will of nature. Even after storms or fires, bamboo returns swiftly, reclaiming the land. Its roots hold the soil, preventing erosion, and its leaves capture carbon with unmatched efficiency. It is both delicate and indomitable. To watch bamboo grow is to see a metaphor for life itself. It begins unseen, underground, patient and silent, preparing its foundation before breaking through the surface. Then, in a surge of strength, it reaches upward, growing with purpose and grace, yet never forgetting its roots. Its speed does not make it reckless. Rather, it grows in perfect harmony with its surroundings, adjusting to wind, rain, and sunlight. When it bends, it does not break. When it is cut, it returns. When it is burned, it rises again. In its hollow stems and swaying rhythm, there is a lesson in endurance, a quiet wisdom that strength need not be rigid, and progress need not be loud. Bamboo's astonishing growth reminds us that vitality can exist in silence, and that nature's most profound miracles often unfold without our notice. In the time it takes for a human to blink, a bamboo shoot has already stretched a fraction higher. In the span of a single moon cycle, it has become a forest. The world around it changes slowly, but bamboo is always in motion, an emblem of energy and renewal. To stand among its towering green pillars is to feel time itself quicken, to witness the earth's relentless will to grow. There is something almost magical about a seed, small enough to be carried on the wind or hidden in the soil for centuries. It holds within it the blueprint of life, a living time capsule that can wait patiently for the right moment to awaken. Most seeds germinate within days or weeks of being scattered, but some possess a far more extraordinary power. They can remain viable for centuries, even millennia, and still grow into living trees long after the civilizations that once walked the earth have vanished. These seeds are more than just dormant life. They are bridges across time, linking the ancient world to the present and proving that nature's memory runs deeper than our own. One of the most famous examples of this phenomenon was discovered in the dry, sun-baked soil of Masada, an ancient fortress overlooking the Dead Sea. In the 1960s, archaeologists unearthed a small cache of date palm seeds stored nearly 2,000 years ago, during the time of the Roman Empire. They were presumed long dead, mere relics of a vanished past. But in 2005, a team of scientists decided to test one. Carefully planting it under controlled conditions, they waited, and to their astonishment, the seed sprouted. A slender shoot emerged, grew into a sapling, and eventually became a healthy date palm tree, nicknamed Methuselah, after the biblical patriarch renowned for his long life. Methuselah is more than just a tree. It is a living connection to the Judean desert of ancient times, genetically distinct from modern date palms and offering clues to the plants once cultivated by people 2 millennia ago. Methuselah is not alone. In the permafrost of Siberia, scientists have coaxed plants back to life from even older material. In 2012, Russian researchers regenerated a flowering plant, Silene stenophila, from fruit tissue buried by Ice Age squirrels more than 30,000 years ago. Though not a tree, this discovery demonstrates how resilient plant life can be, capable of lying dormant through epochs of ice and thaw, waiting for the right combination of warmth, water, and light. Such endurance hints at the possibility that tree seeds, too, might survive astonishing spans of time under the right conditions: cold, dryness, and protection from decay. Trees themselves carry stories of patience and longevity, and their seeds are no different. Some species have seeds so tough and well protected that they seem built for endurance. Lotus seeds have sprouted after lying dormant for over 1,000 years. Certain desert plants can germinate after centuries of rest in arid soils. In the cold, oxygen-poor environments of peat bogs, river sediments, or permafrost, the aging process slows dramatically, preserving seeds for astonishing lengths of time. It is nature's way of ensuring that even if fire, flood, or ice wipes away a generation, life still has a chance to return when the earth is ready. For trees, this ability carries profound ecological significance. A single ancient seed that germinates can reintroduce genetic traits lost from modern populations. It can revive lineages thought extinct and shed light on how species once grew and adapted in climates very different from today's. When scientists grow ancient seeds, they do more than resurrect old plants. They open windows into vanished ecosystems. Methuselah, for example, offers insight into ancient agriculture in the Middle East, where date palms were a vital source of food, shade, and materials. Comparing its genetic makeup with that of modern palms helps researchers understand how human cultivation has shaped the species over centuries. The idea that a tree can grow from a seed older than recorded history also stirs something deeper in us. It is humbling to stand before a living thing whose origins predate our languages, our cities, our very conception of time. It reminds us that life is not confined to the brief span of a human life or even a human civilization. It stretches backward into the past and forward into the future in ways we rarely consider. A seed that germinates today may have fallen when mammoths still roamed or when emperors ruled lands now forgotten. When it grows into a tree, it carries that past into the present, not as a fossil or a memory, but as living, breathing wood and leaf. This extraordinary endurance also offers hope. In a changing world, where many species are threatened by climate shifts and habitat loss, ancient seeds preserved in seed banks, archaeological sites, or natural deposits may one day help restore lost diversity. They are living archives of genetic information, waiting silently beneath the earth or in forgotten storerooms. Scientists are now exploring ways to recover and grow these ancient seeds to better understand evolution, adaptation, and resilience. Each successful germination is a small act of resurrection, a species' second chance, drawn from the deep well of time. There is poetry in the idea that life can pause for centuries and then resume as if no time has passed. A seed does not know how many seasons have turned above it, how many empires have risen and fallen while it slept. It only knows the ancient signal that tells it to wake: moisture, warmth, light. When those conditions return, it stirs, splits open, and sends its first tender root into the soil. From there, it grows upward, reaching for the sun, a living continuation of something that began long ago. Trees grown from ancient seeds are more than biological curiosities. They are living witnesses to the deep continuity of life on Earth. They remind us that time is not a barrier to nature but a medium through which it moves with patience and purpose. In the rustle of Methuselah's fronds or the stretch of a sapling born from a long-buried seed, we glimpse the enduring power of life, its ability to wait, to endure, and to begin again. And in that quiet persistence lies one of nature's greatest miracles, that from the dust of centuries, from the forgotten past, a tree can rise anew. We often think of plants as still and silent, bound to the earth by their roots, incapable of movement. They seem fixed, patient, and unmoving, while animals hurry across the landscape in search of food or shelter. Yet if we slow our own sense of time, if we look more closely and wait long enough, we discover that plants are not motionless at all. They move in ways so subtle and deliberate that their gestures escape the hurried rhythm of human sight. Their motions are slow, secret, and filled with intention. They reach, curl, grasp, open, close, follow, and retreat. Movement, for them, is not a matter of wandering but of surviving, and the earth is alive with their quiet choreography. Every day, even in the calmest meadow, plants perform an invisible dance. Their stems bend toward the sun as it rises and falls, a phenomenon called phototropism. Deep within their tissues, hormones called auxins shift in response to light. When light strikes one side of a stem, auxins flow to the shaded side, causing those cells to elongate. The plant bends, almost imperceptibly, toward the brightness. Over hours, its body curves and adjusts, always following the path of energy that sustains it. This slow reaching is a form of seeking, a way of navigating the world without feet or eyes. In the same manner, roots move downward, pulled by gravity in a motion known as gravitropism, branching through soil as if exploring an underground map drawn in darkness. Even flowers, which seem content to bloom and fade in place, are capable of movement. Many open with the dawn and close at dusk, responding to the daily rhythm of light and temperature. In the cool hours of morning, petals unfurl to invite pollinators. As evening falls, they fold themselves inward to protect their delicate interiors. Some species follow the sun through the day, a behavior called heliotropism. Young sunflower heads are famous for this, turning east to west as the light moves across the sky, then reorienting overnight to face the sunrise again. Their motion is not mechanical but biological, driven by pressure changes in their cells. Each tilt is a response, a wordless gesture toward warmth. There are plants, however, whose movements are sudden enough to astonish even the impatient eye. The Venus flytrap, for instance, has leaves that behave like jaws. When an unsuspecting insect brushes the tiny trigger hairs inside, the trap snaps shut in less than a second. What appears to be an act of predation is a marvel of plant engineering. Electrical signals, much like the nerve impulses of animals, surge through the leaf. The cells on the outer surface expand, the inner ones contract, and the two halves close together in a swift embrace. Once the prey is captured, the trap seals tightly and begins to digest it. After several days, it reopens, calm and ready once more. The motion is not a reflex of panic or hunger, but a highly tuned survival mechanism, evolved in places where the soil holds little nourishment. Other carnivorous plants display their own forms of movement. The sundew, with its glistening, sticky tentacles, bends each hair toward the struggling insect it has caught, slowly wrapping it in a deadly hug. The bladderwort, an aquatic predator, opens its tiny traps in a fraction of a second to suck in prey like a vacuum. Even these dramatic gestures are made possible by shifts in pressure, by the movement of water within cells, by minute changes in electrical potential. A plant's movements are never random. They are the physical language of adaptation. Some plants move in response to touch. The sensitive plant, Mimosa pudica, is perhaps the most well-known of these. Brush its feathery leaves, and they fold instantly, drooping downward as though shy. Within seconds, the whole stem may collapse. This rapid motion is caused by a loss of turgor pressure, the internal water pressure that keeps plant cells firm. When stimulated, the plant releases ions that cause water to flow out of certain cells, making them collapse and fold. After a few minutes, the water returns, and the leaves open again, as if the plant has caught its breath. Scientists believe this reaction may help protect the plant from herbivores, startling insects or animals into retreating. It is movement as defense, gesture as warning. Beyond individual motion, plants also move collectively, though we rarely think of it that way. A forest canopy sways with the wind, bending and twisting in unison, each tree adjusting its posture to avoid breaking. Roots in the soil respond to the vibrations of water, growing toward its sound. Vines and climbing plants, such as morning glories or peas, move with an elegance that borders on animal grace. Their tendrils sway in wide arcs, searching for something to grasp. When they find a support, a stick, a fence, another plant, they coil around it, anchoring themselves and climbing toward the light. These twining motions are guided by touch, known as thigmotropism, and once a tendril secures a hold, it tightens in spirals that strengthen its grip. Time-lapse photography reveals this dance in full beauty. A vine reaching, testing, clasping, and ascending, as if with purpose. Movement in plants is not only external but internal. Within each stem, sap flows upward through the xylem and downward through the phloem, carrying water, minerals, and sugars. This circulation, though invisible, is constant and vital. Even the growth of a new leaf or bud is a form of movement, a gradual unfolding that turns energy into structure. When seen across seasons, a single plant's life appears as a grand motion. Germination, reaching, flowering, fruiting, and decay. Each phase flows into the next like steps in a slow dance too vast for our eyes to follow in real time. To understand that plants move is to expand our sense of life's possibilities. Motion is not the exclusive privilege of animals. It is a universal expression of response, of awareness, of being alive. Plants do not walk or run, but they lean and twist, they close and bloom, they grasp and let go. Their movements tell of a patience beyond our comprehension, a dialogue with the world that unfolds at the pace of sunlight and rain. To watch them, truly watch them, is to witness time itself made visible. The garden, the forest, the meadow, all are filled with dancers whose steps are measured in hours, days, and years. Stillness, it turns out, is only an illusion. Beneath it, the world is always moving. The world of plants is not as silent as it seems. Though they have no ears, no nerves, and no conscious mind to interpret sound as we do, plants are able to sense vibrations in the air and in the soil, vibrations that we call sound. To say that plants can hear is not to claim that they listen to music as humans do, or that they perceive melody and rhythm, but rather that they detect the physical energy of sound waves and respond to it in ways that can influence their growth, their defense, and their survival. The earth is filled with these invisible tremors, and plants are constantly attuned to them, listening in their own quiet, patient way. Every sound is a wave of vibration, a pulse moving through air or matter. For plants, these waves are not meaningless noise. In their tissues and roots are mechanoreceptors, tiny structures that respond to mechanical pressure or movement. When a vibration passes through them, they react by triggering chemical changes. The result can be subtle or dramatic. Genes switch on or off, hormones are released, and cells begin to act differently. In this way, plants interpret their sonic environment, using vibration as information. A rustle, a buzz, a hum. Each carries a message, and plants, without knowing it, are always listening. Consider the relationship between plants and pollinators. Some flowers, like those of evening primrose, have been shown to respond almost instantly to the sound of bees. When the low hum of a bee's wings passes near, the petals of the primrose vibrate faintly, and within minutes, the plant increases the sugar concentration of its nectar. The reward becomes sweeter, more enticing to pollinators. When no buzzing is heard, the nectar remains less rich. It is a perfect economy of effort. The plant invests energy in attracting pollinators only when they are actually present. The flower's hearing mechanism lies not in ears but in its petals themselves, which act like delicate receivers, trembling at just the right frequency to detect a bee's approach. Sound also plays a role underground, where roots navigate through soil in darkness. Experiments have shown that plant roots tend to grow toward the faint vibrations produced by running water, even when there is no direct contact with moisture. It is as if they can sense the song of the stream and follow it through the earth. In this way, plants may locate water sources more efficiently, guided by sound. Roots also respond to the vibrations made by other roots or by insects moving in the soil, adjusting their growth patterns to avoid competition or damage. Beneath the surface, a kind of silent symphony plays out, one that human ears cannot hear but plants can feel. The sounds of herbivores are also meaningful. The crunch of a caterpillar chewing a leaf produces distinct vibrations, and some plants can recognize this pattern. In response, they begin to release defensive chemicals, making their leaves less appealing or even toxic to the attacker. What's more remarkable is that the plants react only to the specific vibration patterns associated with herbivore feeding. Random noises, like wind or rain, do not trigger the same defense. This suggests that plants can distinguish between different kinds of sounds, identifying which ones signal danger. It is not hearing in the conscious sense, but it is an awareness nonetheless, a sensitivity to the music of survival. Even human sounds can affect plant behavior. Studies have shown that certain frequencies of sound waves can influence growth rates. Low-frequency vibrations, such as those resembling a heartbeat or soft hum, often stimulate root development and seed germination. High-frequency sounds, on the other hand, can slow growth or cause stress. Some researchers have experimented with playing music to plants, noting that gentle classical melodies seem to encourage growth while harsh noise can hinder it. Though this idea has sometimes been exaggerated into myth, the underlying principle is real. Vibrations shape the behavior of living cells, and plants are no exception. The mechanism by which plants sense sound is still a mystery being unraveled. Some scientists believe that the plant cell membrane acts like a drumhead, vibrating in response to sound waves and triggering cascades of calcium signaling inside the cell. These signals then alter gene expression, leading to changes in metabolism or growth. In essence, plants turn sound into chemical information. What we experience as hearing, a process that ends in the mind, plants experience as a physiological transformation, a direct translation of vibration into action. If we could slow time enough to see it, we might witness a landscape in constant, trembling conversation. A bee hums, and a flower stirs. A caterpillar chews, and a leaf stiffens. The soil rumbles with the faint patter of water, and roots stretch toward it. The forest is not silent at all. It is vibrating with the echoes of life. Even the whisper of wind across leaves sends signals, shaping how a tree strengthens its trunk or flexes its branches. Each vibration becomes a part of the plant's world, a kind of tactile soundscape that we cannot easily perceive. To think of plants as capable of hearing is to expand our understanding of what listening means. We imagine sound as something ephemeral, meant for ears, but in truth it is a physical force that shapes the living world. Plants have simply evolved a way to sense that force and respond to it, as they do with light, gravity, and touch. Their form of listening is silent, slow, and profoundly embodied. They do not need to interpret or understand. They only need to react. There is a kind of poetry in this hidden sensitivity. While we hurry through the world, speaking and shouting, plants exist in a deeper register of sound. One made not of words but of tremors, rustles, and hums. They hear the buzzing of life around them, the footsteps of insects, the rhythm of the rain. They feel the world's pulse and move in harmony with it. In their stillness, they remind us that hearing is not just the act of listening with ears. It is the art of being aware, of feeling the subtle vibrations that tie all living things together. The plants are listening, always, and in their quiet way, they respond to the world's music. In the quiet persistence of the natural world, plants have mastered a feat that animals can only dream of. They can clone themselves. Without laboratories, without intervention, without even needing to reproduce in the usual sense, many plants create exact genetic copies of themselves. New individuals born not from seeds and pollen but from stems, roots, leaves, or runners. This remarkable ability, known as vegetative reproduction, blurs the line between one plant and another. It allows them to spread across landscapes, conquer new territories, and endure through centuries, sometimes even millennia, as living continuations of an ancient original. Cloning in plants is not some rare curiosity. It is woven deeply into their existence. It is how grasses carpet entire meadows, how strawberry plants creep outward from a single parent, how willows and poplars form sprawling groves. Unlike animals, plants are modular beings. They grow by repeating units, leaves, stems, roots, each capable of sustaining itself under the right conditions. If one piece is separated, it does not die helplessly. It often takes root and becomes a new plant, genetically identical to the one it came from. This capacity for regeneration is not just a trick of survival but a fundamental part of plant life. One of the most familiar examples is the humble strawberry. From the base of a mature plant, slender horizontal stems called runners snake out across the ground. At intervals, these runners touch the soil, and where they do, they sprout roots and leaves, forming new strawberry plants. These young plants remain connected to the parent for a time, sharing water and nutrients, until they are strong enough to live independently. Each is a clone, carrying the same genetic blueprint as the plant that produced it. Through this quiet expansion, a single strawberry plant can give rise to dozens more without ever producing a seed. Trees, too, use cloning to achieve extraordinary feats. In the mountains of Utah stands a forest of quaking aspens known as pando. At first glance, it appears to be thousands of individual trees swaying in the wind, each with its own slender trunk and canopy of trembling leaves. In truth, Pando is a single organism, one vast root system sending up thousands of stems over many centuries. Every tree is a clone of the same genetic individual, born from underground shoots that emerge and grow into new trunks. Pando is estimated to be at least 80,000 years old, making it not only one of the largest living organisms on Earth, but also one of the oldest. Its continued existence is a testament to the power of vegetative reproduction. Even as individual trunks die and fall, the organism endures. Cloning also serves plants well in environments where sexual reproduction is difficult or risky. Producing seeds often requires pollination, favorable weather, and time. But vegetative propagation bypasses these uncertainties. It allows plants to reproduce quickly and reliably, even in places where pollinators are scarce or conditions are harsh. A fallen willow branch caught in the mud beside a river can sprout roots and become a tree. A fragment of creeping grass broken by wind or hooves can take hold in the soil and spread anew. In ecosystems prone to disturbance, floods, fires, or grazing, this ability to regenerate from fragments ensures survival where seeds might fail. Yet cloning is not without its trade-offs. Because the offspring are genetically identical to the parent, they share the same strengths and the same vulnerabilities. A disease or pest that affects one individual can threaten them all. Sexual reproduction, with its mixing of genetic material, generates diversity and innovation, traits that can help populations adapt to changing environments. Clonal reproduction, by contrast, prioritizes stability and persistence over novelty. For many plants, the best strategy is to use both: cloning to spread rapidly and dominate space, and sexual reproduction to introduce new variations and hedge against future challenges. Humans have long taken advantage of plants' natural talent for cloning. Farmers and gardeners propagate fruit trees by grafting cuttings onto rootstocks, ensuring that each new tree bears fruit identical to the original. Potatoes are grown from pieces of tuber rather than seeds. Sugarcane, bananas, and many ornamental plants are routinely cloned by division, cuttings, or tissue culture. These practices allow us to preserve desirable traits: sweetness, hardiness, color, generation after generation. Every Granny Smith apple tree in the world, for instance, is a clone of a single tree discovered in Australia in the 1860s. Without cloning, the uniformity and reliability we expect from many crops would be impossible. The ability of plants to clone themselves also blurs our concept of individuality. What does it mean to call a single aspen tree an individual when it is part of a vast, interconnected organism? Where does one strawberry plant end and the next begin when they are genetically identical and still linked by runners? In a clonal colony, individuality becomes a fluid concept. Each stem may appear separate, yet all are expressions of the same genetic self, scattered across space and stretching through time. Cloning, then, is more than a reproductive strategy. It is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of plant life. It allows plants to exploit opportunities, recover from damage, and persist in ways that animals cannot. It connects generations not through the randomness of genetic mixing but through a continuous living thread. A clonal plant is not merely reproducing, it is extending itself, spreading its being outward into the world. In the quiet growth of runners across soil, in the emergence of new trunks from ancient roots, in the sprouting of leaves from a fallen branch, we see this hidden power at work. It is a reminder that life takes many forms and follows many paths. Plants, rooted and silent though they may be, possess abilities that stretch our understanding of what living things can do. Through cloning, They transcend the limits of time and individuality, creating vast living networks that endure long after the first sprout appeared. And in their stillness, they show that survival does not always require motion. Sometimes, it simply requires the ability to become oneself again and again. Each year, as summer fades and the air turns crisp, forests across temperate regions transform into breathtaking mosaics of gold, crimson, and amber. To most of us, these autumn colors are simply a symbol of seasonal change, a spectacle to be admired, a reminder of the year's turning. But beneath their beauty lies a deeper, more complex story. Those brilliant hues are not merely decorative. In many cases, they are part of a sophisticated defense strategy. The reds, oranges, and yellows that blaze across autumn landscapes are signals and shields, evolved by plants to protect themselves in a vulnerable moment and to prepare for the challenges ahead. To understand this, it helps to know what happens inside a leaf as autumn approaches. During the growing season, leaves are green because of chlorophyll, the pigment that captures sunlight and drives photosynthesis, the process by which plants make their food. But chlorophyll is costly to produce and maintain, and as days shorten and temperatures cool, plants begin to break it down and reabsorb its valuable components before shedding their leaves. As the green fades, other pigments that were present all along, carotenoids which produce yellows and oranges, become visible. At the same time, many plants begin to synthesize a different class of pigments called anthocyanins, responsible for the deep reds and purples that color so many autumn forests. These pigments are not left over from summer. They are deliberately made in autumn, and their production costs the plant energy. This fact alone suggests they serve an important purpose. One explanation lies in the concept of photoprotection. As chlorophyll is dismantled, leaves become more vulnerable to damage from excess light. Bright autumn days can flood a leaf with more energy than it can safely process, leading to the formation of reactive molecules that damage cells. Anthocyanins act as a shield, absorbing some of that light and protecting the delicate machinery still reclaiming nutrients. By reducing light stress, these pigments help plants recover more nitrogen and other elements from their leaves before they fall, recycling them into stems and roots for the next growing season. In this way, the reds of autumn are a sign not of decay but of careful conservation, a plant gathering its strength for survival. But protection from sunlight is only part of the story. Another hypothesis suggests that autumn colors serve as signals in a subtle battle between plants and insects. Many tree species face attacks from aphids and other sap-sucking insects that lay their eggs on leaves in autumn. These insects can carry diseases or drain resources from the plant. Studies have shown that some insects avoid trees with bright red leaves, suggesting that anthocyanins might act as a warning signal, a way for the tree to advertise its health and vigor. A tree that can afford the cost of producing these pigments may be a less hospitable host, prompting insects to look elsewhere. In this interpretation, autumn colors are not just defenses but deterrents, evolved through an arms race between plants and the creatures that feed on them. The signaling theory also helps explain why autumn colors vary so widely among species and climates. In regions with fewer insect threats, such as parts of Europe, bright red leaves are less common, while in North America and East Asia, where insect activity remains high in autumn, trees like maples and dogwoods often produce vivid anthocyanins. Even within a single species, individuals growing in areas with heavy insect pressure tend to show more intense coloration. This variation hints that autumn colors are shaped by ecological pressures as much as by physical ones. Carotenoids, too, may play defensive roles beyond their photoprotective function. These pigments can neutralize reactive oxygen molecules formed during the breakdown of chlorophyll, preventing damage to the leaf cells. They also help maintain the integrity of cell membranes and enzymes as temperatures drop. What we see as golden birches or amber aspens is, in part, a biochemical armor against the stresses of autumn weather. The defensive value of autumn colors extends beyond the individual leaf. By protecting their tissues long enough to reclaim nutrients, trees improve their chances of surviving harsh winters and emerging strong in spring. A tree that recycles more nitrogen and phosphorus from its leaves can build new leaves more quickly when warmth returns, giving it an early advantage in the growing season. Over evolutionary time, the costs of producing protective pigments have been outweighed by these long-term benefits. Humans, of course, have long marveled at the spectacle of autumn without realizing its hidden purpose. The fiery hillsides and glowing canopies we admire on crisp October days are not simply a seasonal flourish. They are the visible expression of an ancient struggle for survival. They speak of plants preparing for scarcity, defending themselves against sunlight, cold, and hungry insects. They reveal a strategy honed over millions of years, written in shades of scarlet and gold. This perspective changes how we see the season. Autumn is not just the end of growth. It is a time of intense activity beneath the surface. Trees are busy dismantling their chlorophyll, recycling precious nutrients, and fortifying themselves for the cold ahead. They are warding off pests and shielding their cells from light and oxidation. Their changing colors are messages and mechanisms as vital as spring's blossoms or summer's lush greens. And so the forests blaze, not merely to delight our eyes but to defend themselves. Each leaf that turns red is a testament to the plant's resilience, a small act of preparation in the face of coming hardship. The beauty we celebrate in autumn is, at its heart, a story of survival. It is a reminder that nature's most breathtaking displays are often born of necessity, that what looks like art may in fact be armor. The riot of color that sweeps through the trees each year is not just the season's farewell, but a declaration of life's determination to endure. In the scorching heart of the desert, where rain may not fall for months and the sun beats down with relentless intensity, survival is a constant battle against thirst. The air is dry enough to steal moisture from anything living, and the soil bakes beneath a sky that offers little mercy. Yet even here, life thrives, not in spite of the heat but because it has learned to master it. Among the most remarkable of these survivors are desert plants, which have evolved ways to manage water with astonishing precision. One of their most ingenious strategies is a process that might be described as sweating, not in the same way animals do, but through a careful regulation of water loss that allows them to keep cool and conserve their most precious resource. In plants, this sweating takes the form of transpiration, the evaporation of water from tiny pores called stomata on the surfaces of leaves and stems. Transpiration is essential for cooling the plant, transporting nutrients, and maintaining the flow of water from roots to leaves. But in a desert, where water is scarce and every drop matters, losing too much through transpiration can be fatal. Desert plants have therefore evolved to make this process extraordinarily efficient, balancing the need to release water vapor with the need to conserve it. One key adaptation is the ability to open and close their stomata with great precision. Most plants open their stomata during the day to take in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, but desert plants often do the opposite. Many of them use a special photosynthetic pathway called CAM, crassylation acid metabolism, which allows them to open their stomata at night when temperatures are cooler and humidity is higher. By doing so, they drastically reduce the amount of water lost to evaporation. The carbon dioxide absorbed at night is stored and then used during the day for photosynthesis, even with stomata closed. This reversal of the usual pattern is a masterstroke of desert survival, allowing plants to sweat just enough to function while keeping their water reserves intact. Other plants take physical measures to reduce water loss. Many desert species have small, narrow leaves or none at all, which reduces the surface area from which water can evaporate. Some, like cacti, have transformed their leaves into spines, leaving the work of photosynthesis to their thick, fleshy stems. These stems are covered in a waxy coating called a cuticle, which acts like a sealant, minimizing water loss. Even the stomata themselves may be sunken into pits or hidden in folds of tissue, creating a humid microenvironment that slows evaporation. Each of these features helps the plant to sweat efficiently, releasing water only where and when it is most needed. Desert plants also take advantage of the rhythms of their environment. In the early morning and late evening, when temperatures drop and the air becomes slightly more humid, they may increase transpiration to cool themselves and draw water upward from their roots. During the hottest hours of the day, when evaporation would be most intense, they tighten control over their stomata, reducing water loss to a bare minimum. This rhythmic breathing of water vapor mirrors the pulse of the desert itself, adapting to the ebb and flow of heat and dryness. Some species have gone even further, developing ways to recycle the water they lose. Certain desert plants can reabsorb moisture from the humid air around their stomata, capturing it before it escapes into the atmosphere. Others excrete salts onto their leaf surfaces to draw in water vapor through osmosis, reclaiming moisture that would otherwise be lost. This ability to recover water is rare and remarkable, and it underscores the extraordinary lengths to which desert plants will go to conserve what little they have. The efficiency of this plant sweating is not only a matter of survival but also of temperature control. In the desert sun, plant tissues can quickly overheat, damaging cells and halting photosynthesis. By releasing even a small amount of water vapor, plants can cool themselves through evaporation, much as sweating cools an animal's skin. This evaporative cooling helps them maintain internal temperatures within a safe range, protecting their delicate photosynthetic machinery and allowing life to continue under conditions that would kill most other organisms. Perhaps most astonishing of all is the sheer variety of strategies desert plants employ to fine-tune this balance. The saguaro cactus, towering silently over the Sonoran Desert, stores vast quantities of water in its tissues and uses a thick cuticle and night-only stomatal opening to minimize loss. The creosote bush, a master of drought endurance, can temporarily shut down transpiration almost entirely during severe dry spells, entering a state of near dormancy until conditions improve. Even ephemeral desert plants, those that sprout, flower, and die within weeks of a rare rain, are finely attuned to water loss, limiting transpiration during their brief lives to make the most of every drop. Through these strategies, desert plants reveal a truth often overlooked. Even in the harshest environments, life does not simply endure. It adapts with elegance and precision. Their sweating is not wasteful but calculated, a carefully measured exchange that sustains them through the extremes of their world. It is a reminder that survival is not always about abundance but about efficiency, about using what is available with the utmost care. When we walk through a desert and marvel at the resilience of its plants, we are witnessing the result of millions of years of refinement. Each cactus spine, each waxy leaf, each nocturnal breath of carbon dioxide tells the story of a species that has mastered the art of water. Their ability to sweat efficiently, to cool themselves while conserving every precious drop, is one of the most sophisticated survival strategies in the natural world. It is why, even in places where the earth cracks and the air shimmers with heat, green life still takes root, reaching toward the sun with the quiet confidence of those who know how to thrive where others cannot. Beneath the forest floor, where sunlight fades and roots weave through soil like threads in a vast tapestry, a silent partnership unfolds. It is older than the trees themselves, older even than the first forests that covered the land. It is the alliance between fungi and plants, a hidden network of exchange, communication, and cooperation that sustains life on Earth. Though invisible to the human eye, this bond is one of the most powerful and enduring relationships in nature. Without fungi, most plants would wither and die. Without plants, fungi would lose their most faithful companions. Together, they form a living web that nourishes the planet. It begins underground, in the dark. When a plant sends its roots into the soil, they do not grow alone. Microscopic threads of fungal filaments, hyphae, reach out to meet them, winding around and sometimes even penetrating the root cells. These filaments extend far beyond the reach of the plant's own roots, exploring the soil in search of water and minerals. In exchange for the sugars and carbohydrates that the plant produces through photosynthesis, the fungus delivers nutrients that the plant cannot easily obtain: phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, and trace elements essential for growth. This mutual exchange, known as mycorrhiza, is a kind of trade system perfected over hundreds of millions of years. It is both generous and precise, a balance of giving and receiving that keeps ecosystems alive. The reach of this underground network is astonishing. A single teaspoon of forest soil can contain several kilometers of fungal threads. These filaments link not just one plant, but many, forming an intricate web that scientists have poetically called the Wood Wide Web. Through it, trees and plants share resources and information. A tall, sunlit tree may send sugars through the fungal network to nourish smaller, shaded seedlings. A plant under attack by pests can send chemical signals through the same network, warning its neighbors to prepare their defenses. The fungi act as couriers, carrying these messages from root to root. In this way, a forest becomes a single organism, bound by invisible threads of communication. Each plant contributes to and benefits from the whole. Fungi, for their part, are master collaborators. They exist in countless forms, from tiny molds to vast underground networks stretching across acres. Their hunger for carbon drives them to seek out partners like plants, who can provide it freely through photosynthesis. But fungi are not passive dependents. They transform the world around them in return. By breaking down organic matter, they release nutrients into the soil, creating the fertile ground in which plants thrive. Fallen leaves, dead wood, and even the bodies of animals are decomposed by fungi, their nutrients recycled into new life. Every forest floor, every patch of meadow, every fertile field is built upon the quiet labor of fungi. They are the unseen architects of fertility, turning decay into nourishment. The partnership between fungi and plants is ancient, so ancient that it may have made life on land possible in the first place. When the first plants began to leave the water hundreds of millions of years ago, the soil was barren and nutrients were scarce. Fossil evidence suggests that fungi were already there, ready to help. They colonized the roots of these early plants, supplying them with minerals in exchange for sugars. Together, they conquered the continents. Every tree, every blade of grass, every flower that has ever grown owes something to that first alliance. Even today, most plants depend on fungi for survival. Only a few species have learned to live without them. This relationship is not always simple or equal. Sometimes fungi behave as benevolent partners, and sometimes as demanding ones. If a plant stops providing sugars, the fungus may withhold nutrients in return. In other cases, certain fungi turn parasitic, draining resources instead of sharing them. Yet even these tensions are part of the larger balance of life. The relationship evolves constantly, shaped by competition and cooperation, need and abundance. It is a reminder that nature's partnerships are dynamic, not static, built on a delicate exchange that must be maintained every day. To walk through a forest with this knowledge is to see the ground differently. Each tree stands not as an isolated being but as a node in a living network. The roots beneath your feet are not merely anchors. They are connectors, reaching out to their fungal partners, sending and receiving invisible streams of sustenance. The scent of earth after rain, rich and damp, carries the breath of this underground world. The mushrooms that rise suddenly after a storm are only the fruiting bodies, the visible tips of a far greater organism hidden below, much as apples are to a vast tree. Each one is a sign that the ancient partnership endures. This alliance has shaped more than ecosystems. It has influenced the evolution of the planet itself. By enhancing plants' ability to capture carbon and store it underground, fungi have helped regulate Earth's climate for millions of years. They stabilize soil, prevent erosion, and foster biodiversity. Their networks link species together in ways that defy simple hierarchy, creating systems of mutual benefit that have sustained life through ages of change. In a very real sense, the greenness of the world, the forests, the fields, the gardens, depends on this invisible companionship. Humans, too, are part of this story, though we often forget it. Our crops rely on fungal allies to thrive. Our medicines, from penicillin to immunosuppressants, are gifts of fungal chemistry. Even the bread we eat and the wine we drink are products of their transformative power. The partnership between fungi and plants mirrors a broader truth, that no life exists in isolation. Every living thing is part of an exchange, a web of giving and receiving that stretches across time and space. To understand fungi and plants as partners is to glimpse the deep intelligence of nature, an intelligence that does not think or plan, yet organizes itself with remarkable elegance. It shows us that cooperation, not competition alone, has been one of evolution's greatest achievements. In the soil beneath our feet, in the quiet spaces between root and thread, life sustains life. Even without eyes to see or ears to hear, plants possess a remarkable awareness of the world around them. One of their most astonishing abilities is their sensitivity to gravity, a force so constant and invisible that even humans forget it is there. Yet plants never do. From the moment a seed begins to germinate, they orient themselves with exquisite precision, sending roots downward into the soil and shoots upward toward the light. This ability to sense and respond to gravity, known as gravitropism, is fundamental to their survival. It ensures that water and nutrients are drawn from below, leaves and flowers are lifted into the air, and the plant anchors itself firmly in place. The story begins the instant a seed awakens. Enclosed within its tiny shell is an embryo, a future plant, curled and waiting. As moisture softens the seed coat and warmth stirs life into motion, the embryo must decide which way is down and which is up. Without this knowledge, its first root could stretch uselessly toward the surface, and its first shoot could bury itself in darkness. Yet even in complete darkness, with no external cues, the young plant knows what to do. Its root, called the radicle, grows downward into the soil, while the shoot or plumule pushes upward toward the air. Gravity provides the silent instruction that guides these first movements. The mechanism behind this sensing is subtle but ingenious. Inside specialized cells of the root cap and stem tissue are tiny, dense structures called statoliths, starch-filled organelles that behave like microscopic weights. Under the pull of gravity, these statoliths settle to the lowest part of the cell, just as a pebble sinks to the bottom of a pond. Their position acts as a signal, telling the plant which way is down. The plant then responds by redistributing growth hormones, particularly auxins, that control cell elongation. In roots, auxins accumulate on the lower side, slowing growth there and causing the root to curve downward. In shoots, the same hormone speeds growth on the lower side, bending the stem upward. The result is a graceful, automatic adjustment. Roots seek the depths, and stems rise to the sky. This process is not rigid but dynamic. If a plant is tilted on its side, statoliths shift within their cells, and the plant begins to curve, reorienting itself with gravity once more. Even a seedling sprouting on a spinning space station or in microgravity will attempt to sense the slightest directional pull. Experiments conducted aboard the International Space Station have shown that plants still display a kind of gravitropic response even in near weightlessness, relying on other cues such as light and moisture when gravity's guidance is weak. This remarkable flexibility shows that plants do not merely react mechanically to gravity. They interpret it as part of a broader environmental picture. The ability to detect gravity shapes every part of a plant's life. Roots branch and grow deeper to anchor the plant and reach water, guided by their constant sense of down. Shoots stretch upward to lift leaves into the sunlight, where photosynthesis can power the plant's growth. Vines and climbing plants, though seemingly chaotic in their movements, also rely on gravity as a reference point, coiling and curving with precision as they search for support. Even flowers and fruits orient themselves with gravity's pull, positioning themselves to better disperse pollen or seeds. Some plants reveal their gravitational sensitivity in more dramatic ways. The stems of sunflowers, for instance, straighten themselves overnight after bending toward the sun all day, guided by their awareness of vertical orientation. Trees that grow on steep slopes twist their trunks so that their branches remain horizontal, a complex adjustment that depends on constant gravity sensing. Even roots that encounter obstacles underground will change direction, probing downward or sideways until they find a path that satisfies both gravity and the search for nutrients. This intimate relationship with gravity extends beyond individual plants to entire ecosystems. Forest canopies are shaped by trees' upward growth, while root systems weave through the earth in complex networks, all organized around a shared gravitational sense. Without gravitropism, plants could not build the towering structures that form habitats for countless species or stabilize the soils that prevent erosion. The orderly structure of life on land, from grasses to rainforests, depends on this unseen conversation between plants and the force that pulls all things toward the Earth's core. Humans have harnessed this knowledge, too. Farmers and horticulturists use an understanding of gravitropism to train plants into specific shapes, guide root growth, and maximize crop yields. Space agencies study how plants respond to altered gravity to prepare for long-term missions beyond Earth, where growing food in microgravity could be vital. Even plant breeders consider gravitropic responses when developing varieties suited to different soils or growing conditions. What is perhaps most astonishing is that this sensitivity requires no conscious thought. Plants do not think about gravity. They feel it in their very cells. Their responses are slow compared to animal reflexes, but they are no less precise. Each tiny statolith shifting in a cell is a decision being made, a signal that shapes the plant's form and future. In their silent way, Plants are constantly aware of the direction of Earth's pull, using it as a compass to navigate the world. In the end, the fact that plants can detect gravity reveals something profound about life itself. Sensory awareness is not the exclusive domain of creatures with eyes, ears, or nervous systems. It is a property of life, woven into the fabric of even the simplest organisms. A seedling breaking through the soil, bending toward the light while its roots plunge downward, is not acting blindly. It is following invisible instructions that have guided plants since the first mosses crept across the land hundreds of millions of years ago. Gravity may be silent and unseen, but plants know it intimately. They lean on it, grow with it, and depend on it. A partnership as old as life on land itself. And in every root that burrows deeper and every stem that reaches higher, we see the quiet intelligence of organisms that, without ever moving, understand the pull of the earth better than we do. It is easy to think of plants as solitary beings, each growing silently in its own patch of soil, indifferent to the life around it. Yet beneath that stillness, plants are far more socially aware than they appear. They sense their neighbors, respond to competitors, and even behave differently toward family and strangers. In a discovery that has reshaped how scientists think about plant behavior, research has shown that many plants can recognize their relatives, distinguishing between kin and non-kin, and they often act in ways that favor their own family. This hidden capacity for kin recognition reveals a complex social dimension to plant life, one that mirrors the cooperative and competitive strategies we usually associate with animals. The ability of plants to recognize kin often becomes most evident below the surface, where roots quietly negotiate space and resources. In many species, roots grow aggressively when surrounded by unrelated plants, branching and expanding to compete for water and nutrients. But when the same plants grow next to their relatives, they behave differently. They restrain their root growth, reducing competition and allowing their kin better access to resources. This phenomenon has been observed in species ranging from sunflowers to sea rocket, Caecoelidentula, a coastal plant that allocates resources more generously when growing alongside siblings. The plants, it seems, know who their family is, and they choose cooperation over conflict when they share the soil with kin. How plants achieve this recognition is a question that scientists are still unraveling, but the evidence suggests a sophisticated form of chemical communication. Plants release a wide array of chemical compounds into the soil through their roots, a complex cocktail of sugars, amino acids, and signaling molecules. These root exudates act like signatures, carrying information about the plant's identity. Neighboring plants detect these chemical cues and respond accordingly, altering their growth patterns based on whether the signals come from a relative or a stranger. In some cases, physical contact between roots may also play a role, as cells respond differently depending on the genetic similarity of the plant they touch. Above ground, too, plants can show preferential treatment toward relatives. In some experiments, seedlings growing among kin adjust the angle and height of their leaves to reduce shading, ensuring that all individuals receive enough sunlight. When surrounded by unrelated plants, the same species compete more fiercely, stretching their stems higher and spreading their leaves more aggressively. Even in how they share access to light, plants balance cooperation and competition depending on who their neighbors are. This ability has profound evolutionary advantages. By cooperating with relatives, plants can increase their inclusive fitness, the success not just of their own genes, but of genes they share with their kin. Helping a sibling or offspring survive and reproduce indirectly ensures the persistence of their shared genetic lineage. For plants, which often cannot move to escape competition, Recognizing and cooperating with relatives offers a powerful strategy for maximizing survival in crowded environments. The benefits of kin recognition extend beyond individual growth. Some plants form cooperative networks with their relatives through shared fungal partners in the soil. Mycorrhizal fungi connect the roots of multiple plants, creating vast underground networks that transport water, nutrients, and even chemical signals. Studies suggest that plants sometimes direct more resources through these networks to relatives than to unrelated neighbors, a quiet form of favoritism that strengthens family ties beneath the surface. In clonal plants, those that spread by producing genetically identical copies of themselves, this cooperation can become even more pronounced, with interconnected individuals sharing resources and responding collectively to stress. The implications of kin recognition reach into the larger structure of plant communities and ecosystems. Family clusters of trees, for example, may grow differently from mixed stands, with kin groups showing more coordinated root systems or more efficient resource use. In grasslands, kinship can influence how plants compete, how they share space, and even how resilient they are to drought or disturbance. By shaping interactions at the individual level, kin recognition helps shape the patterns of life across entire landscapes. This phenomenon also challenges our perception of plants as passive organisms. We tend to associate social behavior, recognition, cooperation, even altruism with animals, especially those with brains. Yet plants achieve these same outcomes through chemical languages, physiological adjustments, and subtle growth strategies. They are aware of their surroundings in ways that are easy to overlook, attuned not only to light, water, and gravity, but also to the identity of their neighbors. Their choices to compete or to share, to expand or to hold back, are guided by information about kinship, even though no thought or intention is involved. Humans, too, have unknowingly harnessed the power of kin recognition. In agriculture and forestry, planting genetically related individuals together can sometimes improve yield and growth, as plants compete less fiercely and share resources more efficiently. Understanding how plants recognize and respond to kin may also help us design more sustainable farming systems, where cooperation among crops reduces the need for fertilizers and other inputs. There is a quiet poetry in the idea that plants, rooted and voiceless, can still tell family from stranger. A sunflower adjusting its roots for a sibling, a sea rocket softening its competition for a cousin, a grove of trees subtly sharing resources beneath the soil. All speak to a hidden social world we are only beginning to understand. These behaviors remind us that life is not just about individual survival but about relationships, even in the plant kingdom. In the stillness of a forest or the hush of a meadow, kin recognition unfolds silently, without fanfare. Plants stretch and root and grow, guided not just by sunlight and soil, but by an awareness of who surrounds them. Winter in the natural world is often seen as a time of death and dormancy. As temperatures plunge and water turns to ice, life slows to a crawl or disappears entirely. For many plants, freezing is a lethal threat. When water inside their cells crystallizes, it expands, rupturing delicate membranes and destroying vital structures. Yet not all plants succumb to the cold. In some of the harshest climates on Earth, from Arctic tundra to high mountain slopes, certain species have evolved an extraordinary ability. They can survive being frozen solid. Far from perishing when temperatures drop below zero, they endure, waiting patiently beneath snow and ice for the return of warmth and light. This remarkable resilience begins with the way these plants manage water inside their bodies. Ice is most dangerous when it forms inside cells, where its sharp crystals tear apart membranes. To avoid this, Many cold-hardy plants encourage ice to form outside their cells instead, in the spaces between them. This process, known as extracellular freezing, is less damaging because the cell walls can withstand the pressure of expanding ice. As water moves out of the cells to join the growing crystals outside, the interior of the cell becomes more concentrated with solutes, which lowers its freezing point and reduces the risk of internal ice formation. In this way, the plant essentially dehydrates its cells to keep them safe from the worst effects of freezing. Some plants go further by producing specialized proteins and sugars that act as natural antifreeze. These molecules bind to tiny ice crystals and prevent them from growing into damaging structures. They also stabilize cell membranes and proteins, helping them maintain their shape and function even at sub-zero temperatures. Sugars like sucrose and raffinose, for example, form a kind of protective glassy state inside cells, preventing ice formation and preserving delicate cellular components. This biochemical armor allows the plant's tissues to remain intact even when temperatures fall far below freezing. In Arctic and alpine regions, plants like the dwarf birch and certain species of saxifrage endure months of such frozen conditions every year. They have adapted not only to survive freezing but also to use it as part of their life cycle. During autumn, as days shorten and temperatures begin to drop, these plants enter a state of deep dormancy. Metabolic activity slows to a near halt, and cells prepare for the cold by accumulating sugars, proteins, and other protective compounds. By the time winter arrives, they are ready to withstand the deep freeze that would destroy less prepared organisms. Encased in ice and buried under snow, they persist silently through the long, dark months. One of the most astonishing examples of this resilience is found in the boreal forest, where species like the black spruce and balsam fir can freeze and thaw repeatedly without harm. Their tissues are so well adapted that even when branches become encased in solid ice after a freezing rain, the trees remain alive and unharmed. Some mosses and lichens, too, can survive being frozen for extended periods. In fact, certain Arctic mosses have been revived after more than 1,000 years entombed in permafrost, resuming growth as if no time had passed. These feats blur the line between life and stasis, showing just how robust plant life can be in the face of extreme conditions. The ability to survive freezing is not limited to polar regions. Even in temperate climates, many plants rely on similar strategies to endure frost. Perennial herbs and shrubs often retreat underground for the winter, storing energy in roots or bulbs that are insulated by soil. Above ground, buds of trees and shrubs form protective scales and accumulate antifreeze compounds, allowing them to withstand freezing temperatures until spring. Seeds, too, can survive intense cold, remaining viable for years or even centuries in frozen soil. This hardiness is one reason plants are able to recolonize landscapes after ice ages. Their propagules endure the cold and awaken when the world warms again. For plants, freezing tolerance is not just a defense but a key to survival in environments where cold is unavoidable. It allows them to live where few others can, to endure winters that would kill most forms of life. It also shapes entire ecosystems. In the Arctic tundra, for example, the growing season is brief, and plants must spring into action as soon as temperatures rise. Their ability to survive freezing means they are ready to photosynthesize and reproduce the moment the snow melts. This rapid response fuels the burst of life that defines high-latitude summers and sustains the animals that depend on it. The resilience of freeze-tolerant plants also has practical significance for humans. Understanding how they survive has inspired advances in agriculture and biotechnology, from developing frost-resistant crops to improving the preservation of biological materials. Scientists study the antifreeze proteins and sugars in these plants to learn how they stabilize cells, insights that could help protect food, tissues, or even organs from damage during freezing. There is something profoundly humbling about these plants and their silent endurance. Where animals may migrate or hibernate to escape the cold, plants have no choice but to stay and withstand it. They do not flee. They prepare. They transform their very chemistry to endure conditions that would shatter ordinary cells. And when the ice recedes and the sun returns, they resume their lives as though nothing had happened, sending up new shoots and leaves into a world reborn. In this way, plants that can survive being frozen solid embody one of nature's most powerful lessons. That life is not only about strength or speed, but also about patience and resilience. They show that survival can mean bending, pausing, even seeming to stop altogether, and yet never truly giving up. Encased in frost, they wait for spring, holding the memory of life deep within their frozen cells. And when the thaw comes, they remind us that even in the coldest, most unforgiving places, life endures. In a field at dawn, when the first light spills over the horizon, the faces of young sunflowers are already turned eastward, waiting. As the sun begins to rise, they seem to come alive, their green stems gently bending, their golden heads following the arc of the sun across the sky. Hour by hour, they move with it, tracking its path from morning until evening, when they rest facing west. During the night, they turn again silently until they face east once more, ready to greet the next sunrise. This daily rhythm, so graceful and so constant, has fascinated people for centuries. To the human eye, it looks like devotion, the flower forever following the source of its life. To science, it is a remarkable dance of biology and light, a phenomenon known as heliotropism. In their youth, sunflowers are restless beings. Their stems are supple, their bodies sensitive to light and darkness. Inside them, an invisible rhythm keeps time with the day. On the east-facing side of the stem, cells grow more slowly in the morning, while on the west-facing side they elongate, pushing the head toward the sun. As the day progresses, the balance reverses. The cells on the western side slow down while those on the eastern side stretch, pulling the flower back toward the dawn. This alternating pattern is guided by the plant's internal clock, its circadian rhythm, which works in harmony with sunlight to coordinate movement. It is not simply the sun's warmth that turns the flower, but a complex interplay between light perception, hormones, and time. The sunflower, in its own quiet way, lives by the rhythm of the sky. This daily turning is not merely for beauty. The movement helps the plant grow stronger and more efficient. By following the sun, young sunflowers maximize their exposure to light, capturing more energy through photosynthesis. The extra warmth in the morning also attracts pollinators. Bees, in particular, prefer flowers that are slightly warmer, as it helps them fly more easily. When the flower faces east at dawn, it heats up faster than those that remain shaded. Thus, the sunflower's devotion to the sun is practical as well as poetic. It is a strategy for survival. As the sunflower matures, however, the dance slows. When the flower reaches full bloom, its stem stiffens, and its head becomes heavy with seeds. The plant's movement ceases, and it settles permanently facing east. This final orientation is not random. Mature sunflowers that face east continue to benefit from the early morning warmth, which encourages more visits from pollinators. Facing the sunrise also helps the seeds develop evenly, as the flower avoids overheating in the intense afternoon light. In this stillness, The sunflower is no longer a follower of the sun, but a keeper of its memory, frozen in the direction of each new beginning. The behavior of sunflowers has long invited human interpretation. In mythology and art, they have been symbols of loyalty, hope, and light. The Greek story of Clytie tells of a water nymph who fell in love with the sun god Helios. When he abandoned her, she sat upon the ground, watching him cross the sky each day, until she was transformed into a sunflower, forever turning toward the sun she loved. The legend endures because it captures something deeply human in the flower's motion. A yearning for warmth, a turning toward what gives life. We see in the sunflower's gesture an echo of our own longing to follow what sustains us. Yet the scientific truth is no less beautiful than the myth. Heliotropism reveals how finely tuned plants are to their environment. Within the sunflower's tissues are specialized cells that sense light, photoreceptors that detect its direction and intensity. These cells send chemical signals through the stem, redistributing a growth hormone called auxin. Where auxin gathers, cells elongate, causing the plant to bend. The process is delicate, continuous, and reversible. As light shifts across the sky, the sunflower adjusts itself, balancing between gravity, growth, and light perception. The effect is so smooth that to the human eye it appears alive with purpose. If you were to stand in a sunflower field and watch closely over the course of a day, the movement would be almost imperceptible, a slow turning measured in degrees per hour. But speed up time, and the field would seem to sway like an orchestra of golden heads following a conductor across the heavens. Each flower moves not independently but in synchrony, guided by the same cues of light and time. The sight of it, even imagined, carries a kind of serenity. It is nature's way of showing that motion need not be quick to be full of grace. The sunflower's turning is also a reminder that stillness and movement are parts of the same cycle. At night, when the sun disappears, the young plant does not sleep idly. In darkness, it repositions itself toward the east, guided by its inner clock rather than by sight. This anticipation, the invisible turning in preparation for dawn, may be the most poetic part of all. The sunflower, it seems, remembers the sun even when it cannot see it. Its movements are acts of faith written into its biology, small gestures of hope repeated every night. To watch sunflowers is to see patience in motion. They do not rush toward the light. They follow it steadily, evenly, without haste. Their rhythm is slower than ours, their devotion quieter, but their message is clear. Life responds to light. Every turn of the stem is a declaration of that truth. Though rooted in the earth, they move in harmony with the sky, joining soil and sunlight in a dance that sustains both. When the day ends and the field glows with the last gold of evening, the sunflowers bow westward, as if in farewell. Then, under the night's cool veil, they slowly turn again, unseen, back to the east. By morning, they are waiting once more, facing the horizon, ready for light. It is a cycle as old as the sun itself, a conversation between earth and sky, written in the motion of a flower that listens to light. The sunflower does not chase the sun. It simply keeps pace with it, steady and sure. A living compass that follows warmth and returns always to where the light begins. In the quiet struggle for survival that unfolds across the plant kingdom, most plants live by the same fundamental rule. They make their own food. With sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide, they weave sugars out of thin air, powering their growth through photosynthesis. But not all plants follow this ancient script. Scattered among forests, fields, and even deserts are botanical outliers that have abandoned self-sufficiency altogether. These are the parasitic plants, thieves and infiltrators that draw their sustenance from others. Instead of harvesting energy from the sun, they tap into the roots or stems of neighboring plants, siphoning water, nutrients, and even carbon as they weave their lives into the bodies of their hosts. Parasitic plants come in many forms, ranging from subtle opportunists to aggressive invaders. Some, known as hemiparasites, still photosynthesize but supplement their diet by stealing water and minerals from other plants. Others, called holoparasites, have given up photosynthesis entirely. They no longer make their own food but rely wholly on their hosts for everything they need. This shift has reshaped their bodies and behaviors in extraordinary ways, leading to some of the strangest and most specialized plants on Earth. One of the most famous examples is Rafflesia arnoldii, the world's largest flower. Found in the rainforests of Southeast Asia, it spends most of its life hidden inside the tissues of a vine, its roots and leaves long since lost to evolution. Only when it blooms does it reveal itself, an enormous, blood-red flower over a meter across, reeking of rotting flesh to attract carrion flies for pollination. This monstrous blossom is the plant's only visible part. All the rest of its body is a network of microscopic filaments embedded in the host, quietly drawing nourishment from it. Without the vine, Rafflesia cannot live. It is the botanical equivalent of a parasite deep within its host's body, invisible but utterly dependent. Other parasitic plants are less dramatic but no less remarkable. Cuscuta, or dodder, is a thin, thread-like vine that twines around the stems of other plants, latching onto them with specialized organs called haustoria. These structures penetrate the host's tissues, forming direct connections with its vascular system, the channels that carry water, sugars, and nutrients. Through these stolen lifelines, dodder extracts everything it needs to grow, often smothering its host under a tangle of golden threads. What makes dodder especially fascinating is its ability to sniff out hosts. Even before attaching, its seedlings can detect the chemical signals released by nearby plants and grow toward them with unerring accuracy. In grasslands and savannas, another group of parasitic plants known as striga, or witchweed, causes devastation on a massive scale. These parasites attack the roots of cereal crops like sorghum and maize, draining their strength and drastically reducing yields. Striga seeds lie dormant in the soil for years, waiting for the right chemical signals from a host's roots before germinating. Once attached, they are nearly impossible to remove, and their impact is felt most acutely in regions where food security is already fragile. What might seem like a botanical curiosity in nature becomes, in agriculture, a formidable enemy. Parasitic plants often evolve extraordinary strategies to locate and exploit their hosts. Some can sense subtle changes in light quality that signal a nearby plant's presence. Others detect vibrations or chemical gradients. Once contact is made, the transformation is even more dramatic. Haustoria not only pierce the host's tissues but also establish complex molecular communication, allowing the parasite to manipulate the host's physiology to its advantage. In some cases, genetic material even moves between parasite and host, blurring the line between the two organisms. This exchange hints at a deep evolutionary entanglement, as if parasite and host are locked in a dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation that has lasted for millions of years. Yet parasitic plants are not merely destructive. Their role in ecosystems is more nuanced. By weakening dominant species, they can increase biodiversity, allowing less competitive plants to flourish. Some provide food or habitat for insects and animals, and many are integral to the cultural traditions and medicinal practices of the people who live alongside them. Even their parasitism itself can have surprising consequences. By connecting different plants through shared vascular systems, they can facilitate the exchange of signals or nutrients across a community, altering ecological dynamics in subtle ways. Their diversity is as striking as their behavior. Parasitic plants range from tiny, nearly invisible species only a few millimeters long to giants like Rafflesia. Some live entirely underground, emerging only to flower. Others, like mistletoes, perch high in the branches of trees, drawing water and nutrients from their hosts, while still carrying out photosynthesis. Across the spectrum, one theme remains constant: a radical departure from the self-reliance that defines most of plant life. The existence of parasitic plants also challenges how we think about plants themselves. We often imagine them as passive, rooted beings, patient harvesters of sunlight, unthreatening and self-contained. Parasitic plants defy that image. They are active seekers and exploiters, capable of detecting, invading, and manipulating other organisms. They show that even among plants, competition can drive evolution toward surprising extremes, and that survival sometimes means abandoning independence for dependence. In the end, parasitic plants are a reminder of life's boundless inventiveness. Where most plants follow the familiar path of photosynthesis, they have taken a different route, one that relies on stealth and strategy rather than sunlight. They have turned other plants into resources, weaving their existence into the lives of others in intricate, often hidden ways. And in doing so, they reveal the complexity of the plant world. A world not only of quiet growth and cooperation, but also of cunning, competition, and survival at any cost. Even in the green, seemingly peaceful realm of plants, the struggle for life can take unexpected and astonishing forms.